1973, the oil crisis hits. Gas prices quadruple overnight. American V8 engines suddenly look absurd. Detroit is hemorrhaging money, scrambling to adapt. But in Japan, a country with no domestic oil, no legacy of gas-guzzling muscle cars, and factories rebuilt from atomic ashes, manufacturers are ready. They've been preparing for this moment for 15 years. This is the story of how Japan went from making crude copies of Western cars to dominating global automotive manufacturing and changing what the world drives. In 1960, Japan was an automotive joke. The industry barely existed. Most Japanese couldn't afford cars. The roads were terrible. Toyota, Nissan, and Honda were unknown outside Asia. American executives visited Japanese factories and laughed at the primitive conditions. One Ford executive famously said Japanese cars would never compete globally. He was catastrophically wrong. Post-war Japan had to rebuild everything. The automotive industry started from rubble, copying Western designs, learning manufacturing techniques, studying quality control. But they added something the West had lost: obsessive attention to efficiency and continuous improvement. The Japanese called it Kaizen. The West would eventually call it lean manufacturing, but by then, Japan had a 15-year head start. Toyota was leading this revolution. In the 1950s, Toyota engineer Taiichi Ohno developed the Toyota production system. It eliminated waste at every step. Parts arrived exactly when needed, just-in-time manufacturing. Workers could stop the entire production line if they spotted a defect. Quality became everyone's responsibility, not just inspectors at the end. American factories were still mass-producing cars and fixing defects later. Toyota was building quality into every step. The 1960s brought Japan's first serious export attempts. The cars were small, underpowered, and cheap. The Toyota Corona, Nissan Bluebird, Honda N600. These weren't threatening Detroit. They were economy cars for people who couldn't afford real automobiles, at least according to American thinking. But they had something crucial. They were reliable. They didn't break down. They got incredible fuel economy. And they were affordable. American manufacturers dismissed them. Big mistake. Japanese companies were studying the American market obsessively. They understood something Detroit ignored. A massive demographic shift was coming. Young buyers entering the market didn't care about tail fins and chrome. They wanted reliability, efficiency, and value. Japan was ready to give them exactly that. Honda entered the car market in 1963, coming from motorcycles. Soichiro Honda was an engineer obsessed with performance and efficiency. The company had no automotive legacy, no established dealers, no American partnerships. They built their reputation on motorcycles and small engines. In 1972, Honda introduced the Civic. It was small, front-wheel drive, and had a new engine technology called CVCC that could meet strict emission standards without a catalytic converter. It was brilliant engineering, and it arrived at exactly the right moment. Then, 1973 happened. OPEC oil embargo. Gas lines stretched for blocks. Americans waited hours to fill their tanks. Suddenly, a Toyota Corolla getting 30 miles per gallon looked genius, while a Chevrolet Impala getting 10 miles per gallon looked stupid. Japanese imports exploded. Toyota and Nissan couldn't ship cars fast enough. Honda Civics had waiting lists. The Japanese weren't just selling economy cars anymore. They were selling the future. Detroit panicked and responded terribly. American manufacturers rushed out small cars but built them badly. The Ford Pinto, Chevy Vega. These were disasters. They broke down constantly, rusted quickly, and reinforced that American companies couldn't build quality small cars. Meanwhile, Toyotas ran for 200,000 miles without major issues. Consumer Reports started recommending Japanese cars almost exclusively. The reputation gap widened every year. The 1980s cemented Japanese dominance. Honda launched Acura in 1986, the first Japanese luxury brand in America. Lexus followed in 1989. These weren't just luxury cars. They were better than Mercedes and BMW in quality surveys while costing less. The LS400 shocked the industry. It was quieter, more reliable, and smoother than the best German sedans. Mercedes engineers bought one, tore it apart, and reportedly couldn't figure out how Lexus built it so well at that price. Toyota's production efficiency was now legendary. The company could design and manufacture a new model in half the time it took Detroit. Mazda introduced the Miata in 1989, single-handedly reviving the roadster market that British manufacturers had abandoned. It was affordable, reliable, and fun. Everything British sports cars promised, but never delivered. Japanese manufacturers also mastered something Detroit struggled with: building cars people actually wanted. The Honda Accord became America's best-selling car. The Toyota Camry was boring but perfect. It never broke, held its value, and did exactly what buyers needed. These weren't exciting cars, but they were exactly right for their market. Then Japan did something unexpected. They built performance legends. The Nissan Skyline GT-R dominated racing. The Honda NSX proved supercars didn't need to be unreliable Italian temperamental machines. The Toyota Supra and Mazda RX-7 became icons. Mitsubishi's Lancer Evolution and Subaru's WRX created the performance sedan category. These cars weren't just fast. They were reliable, advanced, and engineered to perfection. By the 1990s, Japanese automotive dominance was complete. Toyota became the world's largest automaker. Honda engines were considered the most advanced. Nissan's engineering influenced everyone. Even struggling manufacturers like Mazda were producing cars that won international awards. The students had become the masters. The secret wasn't just manufacturing efficiency, it was corporate culture. Japanese companies thought in decades, not quarters. They invested in research and development relentlessly. Engineers were respected, not just MBA accountants. Quality was obsessive, not a marketing slogan. When Toyota found a defect, they fixed it immediately and learned from it. When Detroit found a defect, they calculated if a recall cost more than the lawsuits. By 2000, the transformation was complete. Japan had gone from bombed-out ruins in 1945 to global automotive superpower in 55 years. They proved that starting with nothing could be an advantage. No bad habits to unlearn, no legacy systems to maintain, no arrogance about being the best. American manufacturers eventually learned. The Big Three adopted Japanese techniques, improved quality, and became competitive again. But they learned by losing market share, closing factories, and nearly going bankrupt. Japan taught the global automotive industry that efficiency, quality, and continuous improvement weren't optional. They were survival. The cars that built Japan's automotive superpower weren't built on horsepower or luxury. They were built on reliability, efficiency, and obsessive attention to detail. While Detroit was building what they wanted to sell, Japan was building what customers wanted to buy. That difference changed everything. The country with no oil, no resources, and no automotive legacy became the standard everyone else had to chase. That's how Japan became the automotive superpower.